Did you notice grocery prices climbing again? August 2025 saw another 5% spike, and analysts say September could be the month where the cracks finally break wide open. This isn't fear, it's fact. A brand new USDA survey shows that nearly 7 out of 10 shoppers are already worried about rising costs, and experts are warning, this is only the beginning. Today, I'm breaking down 10 grocery items you must secure before September ends, because some of them are disappearing faster than anyone expected. And wait until you hear number 7. It's already being rationed by wholesalers, and most people have no clue what's coming. So let's start with the foundation of almost every pantry, rice and oats. Now, most people walk past these two without a second thought. They're boring basics, right? But here's the twist. Both are at the center of a global supply storm, and if you don't stock up now, you could be staring at price tags twice as high by the holidays. Take rice. India, the world's biggest exporter, has already slapped a 20% export duty to keep supplies at home. On top of that, the US recently hit certain Indian rice imports with tariffs up to 50%. What does that mean for you? That $25 bag of basmati rice you grabbed last year could jump to nearly $40 before winter. And it's not just the price. Importers are hinting that some varieties may vanish completely. In fact, one wholesaler on the East Coast has already started rationing bulk orders to restaurants. And oats? They're caught in their own crisis. Canada, our top supplier, had a wild growing season, droughts followed by floods in major provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Even though more acreage was planted this year, the harvest has been delayed, leaving mills scrambling to keep up. Some chains are already reporting wholesale oat prices up 18% since spring. And here's a hidden domino effect most people don't consider. When oats run short, it's not just your breakfast bowl. Granola bars, protein snacks, and oat milk lattes suddenly cost more too. It sneaks up on you at checkout. So what should you do right now? Play it smart. Go for white rice, not brown, because properly stored white rice can stay fresh for up to 30 years. Store it in an airtight container in a cool, dark place, and here's an old-school trick my grandmother used. Drop a few bay leaves inside. They act as natural insect repellents and keep pests from ruining your stash. For oats, bulk buy rolled or steel-cut oats while the prices are still manageable. Kept sealed and dry, they'll last up to 2 years, and you'll be insulating your grocery bill from the next wave of sticker shock. I get it, it's tempting to sit back and hope prices settle. But history says that's a dangerous gamble. Remember 2022? First came the export restrictions, then bad weather, then quiet price creep, and suddenly, in just 1 month, prices skyrocketed by 30% overnight. By then it was too late. Rice and oats might sound ordinary today, but in a shortage? They're basically gold in a bag. Item 2. Dried beans and lentils. Most people walk right past beans and lentils, thinking they're the dullest item in the aisle. But here's the truth. In 2025, these are turning into pure pantry treasure. But let's start with Argentina, one of the world's key bean exporters. They're in the grip of a brutal drought. Fields are drying up, farmers are cutting back, and export numbers are plunging. Less supply leaving South America means tighter global markets, and the result? Prices climbing fast. Organic beans and lentils alone have surged nearly 40% in just 1 year. And here's the twist. Demand is rising at the exact same time. Thanks to the plant-based protein boom, beans and lentils aren't just a poor man's food anymore. They're the backbone of everything from trendy lentil pasta and high-protein snacks to chickpea flour tortillas and vegan energy bars. Big food companies are snapping them up by the truckload. Want a real-world example? My neighbor Omar is a bulk bin guy, swears by buying beans cheap. Last week he went to 3 stores. The first 2? Bulk bins empty. The third? No stock at all. He left with canned beans instead, at nearly 3 times the cost per pound. Don't be Omar. Here's the move. Buy dried beans and lentils now while bulk deals still exist. Store them smart, airtight glass jars or food-grade buckets. And here's a pro survival hack. Slip in a few bay leaves. They naturally keep out weevils and pantry moths that can wipe out your stash. Kept in a cool, dark spot, beans and lentils will last 25 to 30 years. That's decades of shelf life. Just rotate your stock. Eat the oldest first, replace with new, and you'll always be ahead of shortages. And remember, beans aren't just survival rations. They're high-protein, versatile, and inflation-proof. What costs $1.50 a pound today could easily be $3 or $4 by Christmas. Item 3. Canned goods. Here's where the warning lights are already flashing. Canned food. Most people assume cans are always plentiful, but they don't realize the entire system relies on one critical material, aluminum. Right now, aluminum shortages are so severe that major manufacturers have quietly slashed production by up to 30%. But there's a second punch: weather disasters. Poor harvests mean less fresh produce available to even go into cans. So even if factories had the aluminum, they wouldn't have enough food to fill them. It's a perfect storm. So what's the insider strategy? Go for store brands. They're often made in the exact same facilities as big-name labels, but I've seen them running 40% cheaper. A neighbor of mine shelled out $2.50 for Del Monte corn when the store brand was sitting right beside it for $1.49. Same taste, same factory, just a different label. Pro tip, when you stock up, mark the purchase date on each can with a permanent marker. That way, you'll never be guessing how long something's been sitting on your shelf. Rotate often, eat the oldest first, and your can stash will stay fresh and reliable. If you're serious about being prepared, aim for at least 50 to 60 cans per person in your household. Mix it up: vegetables, fruits, soups, proteins. Don't think of it as hoarding. Think of it as smart shopping before prices jump another 15 to 20% by September. Item 4, powdered milk. I know what you're thinking, powdered milk? Really? Sounds like something you buy for camping trips and then forget in the back of your pantry. But here's the surprise. This overlooked staple might be one of the smartest buys you can make right now. Powdered milk is basically a lifeline for your coffee, cereal, baking, and sanity when fresh dairy gets too expensive or disappears altogether. The new non-fat varieties last 2 to 10 years, but when sealed in nitrogen-flushed cans with oxygen absorbers, shelf life stretches to 20 or even 25 years. That's a quarter of a century of security in a single can. Why does this matter now? Dairy costs are climbing fast. Feed prices are up, labor is stretched thin, and extreme weather keeps hammering milk production. Fresh milk has already jumped nearly 20% since January, and the USDA is warning another surge could hit before the holidays. Meanwhile, powdered milk demand is exploding, not just among preppers, but in everyday households that want something shelf-stable, lightweight, and versatile. Here's a pro trick most people don't know: non-fat powdered milk lasts longer than whole milk powder because there's no fat to turn rancid. But if you want a creamier taste, just blend it with shelf-stable half and half or even coconut milk powder. And it's not just for drinking. Use it in pancakes, smoothies, homemade yogurt, even as emergency baby formula in a pinch. One storage tip: keep it in a cool, dry space around 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Once opened, move it into an airtight jar and mark the date. My aunt actually found a sealed can from 2015, used it in pancakes just last month, and said you couldn't tell the difference. That's the kind of backup that keeps you calm while everyone else is stressing over $7 gallons of milk. Item 5, flour and baking essentials. Now this one's chilling. Just last week, I spoke with Jennifer, who's been running a bakery in Chicago for 15 years. She told me straight, "I've never seen anything like this in my career." Here's why. In the second quarter of 2025, whole wheat flour production hit a 10-year low. The smallest numbers since they even began tracking. And it's not bouncing back, it's sliding further down each month. And it's not just the US, Ukraine, and Russia, which normally supply about 20% of the world's wheat, are still struggling with massive disruptions. Add to that the wildfires, floods, and droughts hitting other major wheat regions, and you've got a worldwide crisis tightening like a vice. Want to know how this looks on the ground? Last weekend, I visited 3 grocery stores, including Costco. Their flour aisle looked like it had been stripped by a tornado. When I asked the manager, someone I've known for years, he admitted quietly, "We're only getting about 40% of our usual flour shipments, and corporate says it's going to get worse before it gets better." Here's the kicker. Since spring 2025, flour prices have already jumped a staggering 47%. That $4.50 bag of King Arthur flour in March? It's now over $6.60, and experts are predicting it could cross $9 by October. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Remember Sarah, the neighbor I mentioned earlier? She made a mistake during the last shortage that cost her big time. She only stocked up on all-purpose flour. The problem? When panic baking hit, bread flour vanished first. This time, she's prepared, grabbing both varieties plus some whole wheat flour for the added nutrition. And here's the real game changer, a tip I got straight from a food preservation expert with over 30 years in the business: Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Forget the usual 6 to 8 months of freshness. Stored this way, flour can last 5 to 8 years. Imagine having your own personal bakery supply that never runs dry. But flour isn't the only baking essential under pressure. Sugar prices just spiked 5.1% according to the USDA, and the outlook is worse. Severe drought across Asia plus El Niño conditions have wrecked harvests, creating the worst sugar-growing environment in over a decade. Want a reality check? Just last month, I bought a 20-pound bag of sugar for $16. Today, that same bag costs $28. That's a jaw-dropping 75% jump in just 4 weeks. My friend Dave, who owns a bakery, told me sugar now costs him more than premium vanilla extract used to. And while everyone's focused on sugar, something else is slipping under the radar. Yeast shortages are back. The American Bakers Association reports that nearly 7 out of 10 bakeries are already struggling to secure enough yeast. If you remember the chaos of 2020 when yeast vanished overnight, you know exactly how fast this can spiral. Don't forget the basics either: salt and baking powder. They seem endless, but they're surprisingly fragile in the supply chain. A handful of producers control the bulk of America's salt supply, so any hiccup sends shockwaves nationwide. Here's how to protect your baking stash. Store flour in food-grade buckets with Gamma-seal lids, and keep sugar and salt in large mason jars. Cool, dry storage is the secret. My setup has kept baking supplies fresh for over 2 years and saved me hundreds of dollars in the process. Item 6. Specialty imports and ethnic foods. Now this is where things get really interesting and really urgent. Specialty imports and ethnic foods are disappearing faster than almost anything else. But tariffs. A 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, plus another 10% on Chinese imports, is already shaking the market. Just last week, an Asian grocery store owner told me his costs have soared 40% in a single month. Here's what's getting scarce: Sichuan peppercorns, sesame paste, specialty vinegars, imported oils, the kind of staples millions of families rely on for authentic cooking. Want a shocking example? Zhenjiang vinegar, a Chinese kitchen essential, has gone from $3.50 a bottle to $8.95 in just 2 months. Restaurant owners are literally calling suppliers, begging for stock. But here's the silver lining: many of these imported foods have incredibly long shelf lives. Soy sauce can last decades. Specialty vinegars don't just hold up, they actually improve with age. Buying them now isn't just stocking up, it's an investment in future flavor. Pro tip: don't rely on big box stores. Ethnic grocery shops often have better prices and more direct supply chains. I picked up sesame paste for $4.50 at a local Asian market, while Whole Foods was charging $9.99 for the exact same brand. Item 7. Coffee and tea. Alright coffee lovers, brace yourself, because what's happening to coffee prices right now is nothing short of shocking. Brazil, which grows nearly 40% of the world's coffee, just went through its worst frost in almost 3 decades. Entire crops were destroyed, and experts say it'll take 2 to 3 years before they fully recover. I spoke with a veteran coffee roaster who's been in the game for over 30 years, and he told me, this is the worst I've ever seen it. He's predicting prices could literally double by winter. And the crazy part? Most people have no clue it's coming. Here's the insider trick: coffee, if stored the right way, can hold its flavor and caffeine punch for up to 2 years. The method? Divide your beans or grounds into weekly portions, vacuum seal them, and toss them in the freezer. It's like locking in freshness before prices explode. But it's not just coffee under threat. Tea is also getting hammered by climate change. Major growing regions are seeing crop failures, and premium teas are quietly turning into luxury goods. Green tea alone has jumped 40% in price since spring, and specialty blends are becoming harder to find every week. My survival strategy? I buy whole coffee beans in bulk and invested in a quality grinder. Because beans stay fresh 3 to 4 times longer than pre-ground coffee. I also stockpile instant coffee as a backup. It might not taste like a fancy latte, but it never goes bad, and trust me, when you need caffeine in a pinch, it's a lifesaver. Oh, and here's a mistake you don't want to make: never store coffee in the fridge unless it's vacuum sealed for freezing. Otherwise, it'll soak up moisture and every other smell in there. Ever had garlic-scented coffee? If you don't, try it. Now, let's talk about something most people aren't paying attention to: frozen vegetables. This one's quietly turning into a crisis. With extreme weather wrecking harvests and packaging shortages slowing down production lines, frozen veggie supplies are collapsing. I walked into a Target last week and noticed their frozen vegetable aisle was maybe 30% stocked. Even the basics like corn and green beans were hard to find. These aren't fancy products, these are staples. But here's the silver lining: frozen vegetables are actually often more nutritious than fresh ones because they're flash frozen at peak ripeness. And they'll last 8 to 12 months in your freezer. That's nearly a year of guaranteed vitamins and minerals. My move is simple. I go for mixed veggie blends and stir-fry packs because they give me variety and balanced nutrition in one bag. But I also stock up on singles like broccoli and corn so I can use them in different meals. Storage hack? That way nothing goes to waste, and you're always rotating your supply. Now, let's end with a category people forget until it's too late: baby formula and pet food. And if you've got infants or pets, this might be the most critical warning of all. Baby formula shortages are still happening. The 2022 crisis may have faded from the headlines, but production is still fragile. Just last month, Abbott Nutrition announced new delays, and parents are already reporting empty shelves. Here's the surprising fact: baby formula, when stored correctly, has a shelf life of up to 2 years. If you've got a baby, or even plan to have one soon, stocking 3 to 6 months worth isn't panic buying, it's smart parenting. And don't forget about your pets. Most premium pet foods rely on global ingredients, and those supply chains are breaking down. The result? rising prices, inconsistent stock, and stressed-out pet owners scrambling for alternatives. And here's something most pet owners don't realize. Switching brands suddenly can wreak havoc on your pet's stomach. A veterinarian I spoke with said they're already treating more cases of upset digestion because favorite brands are vanishing from shelves. The solution? Don't wait until it's an emergency. Start stocking your pet's usual food now while also slowly introducing 1 or 2 backup options. That way, if supply chains break again, your furry friend won't be shocked by a sudden diet change. When it comes to storage, airtight containers are a game changer. I personally use Gamaseal buckets. They keep pests out, lock freshness in, and extend the shelf life of dry food for months. This same system is used by animal shelters to safely store bulk food, so you know it works. Item 10. Cooking oils. Now let's move to something that's quietly turning into one of the biggest global food crises: cooking oils. And I'm not just talking about the bottle of vegetable oil sitting in your pantry. This is a worldwide shortage that touches everything from fried chicken at your favorite diner to the bread you buy at the supermarket. Here's the ugly truth. Canada's canola harvest is down more than 30% after a historic drought. In South America, soybean production has been crippled by brutal weather patterns. And Indonesia, the king of palm oil, recently tightened export limits, choking global supply. That means almost every major oil-producing region on the planet is under stress at the same time. And the impact is already hitting the food industry hard. Last month, a chef in Chicago showed me her supplier invoices, and the numbers were shocking. Specialty oils had doubled in price since the start of 2025. Even bulk canola oil for deep fryers, something restaurants buy by the case, has jumped from $28 to over $50. That's a price spike you simply can't absorb without passing it down to consumers. Take this in: a gallon of avocado oil that cost $45 just months ago? Now it's pushing $90. Sesame oil that used to be $12 is now over $20. Restaurants are literally rewriting their menus because cooking some dishes is no longer affordable. If the pros are struggling, imagine what's about to happen to average shoppers like us. But here's where most people go wrong when stockpiling oils. They just grab whatever's cheap and available, not realizing some oils spoil in under a year while others can last for years and serve multiple purposes. If you're prepping for long-term stability, you need versatile oils that stay fresh and can double as survival tools. Top oil picks for survival. First, coconut oil, the Swiss Army knife of oils. Properly sealed, it lasts up to 3 years, works for both high-heat cooking and baking, and has powerful bonus uses. Did you know coconut oil has natural antimicrobial properties? In emergencies, it can be used as a makeshift skin ointment, a moisturizer, or even as fuel for an emergency candle. Many Pacific Island communities have used it in traditional medicine for centuries. Next is avocado oil, my go-to for everyday cooking. It has the highest smoke point of any oil, over 500 degrees Fahrenheit, making it perfect for frying, roasting, or sautéing without producing harmful compounds. On top of that, it's loaded with healthy fats and vitamin E, giving it serious nutritional value during times when fresh produce might be scarce. And of course, olive oil, but not the kind everyone raves about. Forget extra virgin if you're prepping. What you really want is refined olive oil, and here's why. Here's the key difference that most people miss. Refined olive oil is the real prepper's choice. Because it stores longer, holds up better when you're cooking over high heat, and costs far less than extra virgin. Save the fancy bottle of EVOO for drizzling over fresh bread or salads when life is normal. In a survival scenario, refined olive oil is what keeps you cooking without waste. But let me take this one step further. There are a few oils that most Americans overlook, yet they're absolute game changers for long-term food security. First is ghee, or clarified butter. This is an ancient preservation method that's been used in India for centuries, long before refrigerators ever existed. Properly sealed, ghee can last up to 2 years without going bad, and it adds a richness to meals that no other oil can match. Then there's peanut oil. Neutral in flavor, excellent for high-heat cooking, and extremely shelf-stable when stored correctly. But here's where I learned a hack that completely flipped how I buy oils. I was talking with Jake, a wholesale supplier who delivers to dozens of restaurants across the Midwest, and he told me something that goes against what most of us believe. He said, "Stop buying the giant gallon jugs. I know, it feels like you're saving money with bulk containers, but every time you crack one open, oxygen gets inside. And oxygen is what triggers oxidation, the process that slowly turns fresh oil rancid. In other words, the bigger the jug, the faster it spoils once opened." Instead, Jake buys smaller bottles. Think 16 to 20 ounces. He stores the unopened ones in a cool basement, and once he opens a bottle, he uses it up within a couple of months. That way, the rest of his stockpile stays sealed, untouched, and perfectly fresh. When I saw how simple his system was, I adopted it myself, and I've never had a problem with wasted or rancid oil since. Now, let's get into proper storage. Because this is where most people fail and end up losing hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars in spoiled stock. Oils have three main enemies: heat, light, and air. Trust me, I learned this lesson the hard way. I once stored an entire case of olive oil right next to my water heater. 6 months later, it tasted like bitter chemicals, completely ruined. So here's a pro tip that could literally save your whole supply. Keep your oils in a cool, dark space, far from your stove, dishwasher, or garage. Those areas get too hot or fluctuate too much. Personally, I use a basement closet that stays around 65 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, and I've had oils last perfectly for 18 months and counting. And here's an advanced trick straight from a professional food preservation expert. If you're buying in bulk, don't leave oil in its clear plastic container. Transfer it into amber glass bottles or sealed metal tins. The darker container blocks light, slows oxidation, and can double the shelf life of your oils. That's the kind of detail most preppers overlook, but it makes all the difference. Plastic containers might feel convenient, but here's the hidden problem: they actually breathe. Over time, tiny amounts of air sneak through the plastic walls, slowly degrading your oil. Glass or metal, on the other hand, create a true airtight shield, keeping your oils tasting fresh for years, not months. And oils aren't just for cooking. During the 2021 Texas winter storm, my cousin went 6 days without power. She improvised by soaking cotton balls in coconut oil and turning them into makeshift candles that burned for hours. Olive oil doubled as a natural wood polish, protecting her furniture from moisture damage. And when her skin cracked from the freezing air, she used avocado oil as a moisturizer, a hair conditioner, and even a safe makeup remover. But here's the part hardly anyone is talking about: good oils aren't just food storage, they're financial storage. Unlike canned beans or rice, which basically hold their price, premium oils have been rising faster than inflation. A $15 bottle of avocado oil today? Based on current supply chain forecasts, that same bottle could cost $25, $30, or more by the end of the year. That means every purchase now is protecting your pantry and your wallet. And look, I'm not here to scare you, but the shortages are no longer what if. They're already unfolding. The smartest strategy is to stock up steadily, adding an extra bottle or two each grocery trip, instead of panic buying in bulk when it's too late. Remember, this isn't hoarding. This is responsible prepping. The goal is to buy what you'll actually use, rotate your stock, and store it the right way. If this breakdown helped you see food storage differently, hit that like button and subscribe, because I'll be tracking every price hike and shortage as it happens. And I want you to stay ahead of the curve, not behind it. Let me know in the comments, what's the first oil or food item you're prioritizing right now? Personally, I started with cooking oils because the price spikes there have been brutal. And here's a teaser for next week: I'm exposing the storage mistakes that quietly destroy thousands of dollars in supplies. And yes, 90% of people are guilty of one mistake in particular. Stay sharp, stay prepared, and remember this golden rule: the best time to start prepping was yesterday. The second best time? Right now.